That was cool. And so we're here to present basically today about some offers that we have that are Germany specific for your classroom. So mostly we work with German teachers in the US, and we'll get into this in a minute. But we are actually very excited to be speaking to people who are not German teachers, because part of what we do at our organization is to convey a modern day image of Germany, right? So we'll dive into that a little bit, but that includes culture and language and social studies, STEM, sustainability. So I ask you to just approach this with an open mind. Think about your colleagues, right? Because this is, we have opportunities for you, but also for colleagues that you have. So we'll get started quickly. I just want to mention the OPI credit form is up here, signed by Nikki already. So grab that. And then during or after, please sign our sheet here or scan one of these QR codes so that we can get in touch with you again. Let me know who is here. So if you are interested, we can be in touch more. So I think we're just going to get right ahead started. I'm going to hand the floor over to my colleague, Ryan Haupt, who will start with his presentation after I answer this. He joins us from Seattle and has worked with the World Affairs Council in Washington State for a long time, and was with one of our outreach programs. It's called Transatlantic Outreach Program. You'll see their logo here. So he's going to talk to you about his experiences today, and I'm just going to hand it over to you. You have about 30 minutes, and then I'll be back for 30 minutes, and hopefully we'll have overwhelmed you with information.
Yeah.
So, right.
See how it goes, and please feel free to have questions during the presentation to interrupt me. So I see this more as a conversation. Hi.
It's me. I'm going to interrupt.
Yes.
Just want to let everybody know that I am recording this. And so if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from it, I'll have the link available afterwards.
So just a little bit more background about me. So as Tommy mentioned, I live in the Seattle area, a little bit further north, up towards Everett, if you know where Everett is. And I'm a high school social studies teacher at Glacier Peak High School in Snohomish. And I teach psychology, I teach an AP comparative government course, I teach a government in the environment course. So a lot of things going on in the news right now, of course, lots to talk about for sure. But I also work part-time at the World Affairs Council in Seattle. I direct their education program. So for the past 8 years, it's been nice to be in a position to bring global education into classrooms throughout the Pacific Northwest. So we work a lot with teachers, do a lot of professional development. We try to set up a lot of virtual exchange between classrooms, and that's been an exciting opportunity as well. And then I have the opportunity, most recently to also work with TOF in the Goethe Institute, so in the Transatlantic Outreach Program. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the program, sort of like the 3 pillars. And then I'm probably also going to talk about the last feature of the program, which is always an incentive for teachers, and that's their study tours. And the last couple of years with COVID, they've had to do some virtual tours. And I don't know if any of you attended any of those programs. Have you heard about those at all? So, I mean, I guess it's sort of maybe one of the next best things, to hear from experts on lots of different topics related to Germany. But hopefully this year or the following year, there'll be opportunities for educators to go on study tours. Because I'm a big believer that when you have an opportunity to participate in professional development, where you actually have an opportunity to travel and then bring those experiences back into the classroom, it's hard to replicate that. And there's so many different opportunities to be able to do that. So TOP is one opportunity. So it's nice to really be here with you today. If you want to go on to the next slide, I just had some statistics or some questions, some true or false questions that I thought were sort of interesting. 1/3 of Germany is covered in forests and woodlands. Do you think that's true? Yes, that's true. Okay. 2,100, are there really 2,100 castles? Yeah. I've always wondered what it'd be like to live in a castle. So, not sure if I'll have enough money on my teacher salary to buy one, but. Oh, I could stay in a hostel. So I have done that with students before when I've taken them to Europe. So done that. The capital city, Berlin is 9 times bigger than Paris and has more bridges than Venice.
Yes.
True. That is true. So on our study tour back in 2017, we went to Berlin. That was the first. I've been to Germany many times before, but I've never really spent much time in the East and had a chance to go to Berlin on this program. And Berlin was such a dynamic city. It was really fantastic. Have there been different capital cities of Germany? Yes, that is true. That is true. And I was thinking about this as well too, just in terms of, I talk to my students a lot about, borders in Europe and how things have changed. And I had an opportunity last summer to go to an area that my relatives came from, my grandparents came from, that I originally thought was in Germany, but it turns out it was in Germany at one point, but now it's on the other side of the border and now in France, in sort of the Alsace region, if you traveled there before. Just thinking about how things can shift and change over time with history. What about cars? Germany sells around 6 million cars a year, making it one of the largest car producers in the world. I think one of my favorite tours was going on the BMW tour. There's a museum in Munich, which was great, and looking at the old BMWs that were made, back in the 1920s and 1930s. Have any of you been in Munich?
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been to that museum, but that was really fun. A nation that loves books, publish around 94,000 titles every year. That's true. All of these are true. There's a pattern here. Germany has more zoos than any other country, over 400. Apparently, they told me that was true. So I haven't seen all of them. Bantu was created in Germany during the Second World War after Coca-Cola syrup was prevented from being imported into the country.
That's funny.
I know, I didn't know that either. Munich is the second most punctual large airport in the world after Tokyo.
I agree.
So I was telling my parents, because my parents are growing in age and they wanted at least do one more trip to Europe, and we've flown a lot in and out of Paris, but we had we're used to some of the chaos that comes along with Charles de Gaulle, and we had a pretty bad experience last summer, and this summer we decided to fly out of Munich, and the times I fly out of Munich, it's been so simple and easy. So I'm thinking for my 80-year-old parents, we might want to do Munich this time. And so this really confirmed it for me. So it's going to be much easier. All right. A little bit about the transatlantic outreach program. You can go along to the next slide. Founded in 2002, supported by the Goethe Institute in Washington, D.C. A relatively small staff, that I work with someone named Woodpowell and Jenny Windell. And basically, as Tommy mentioned, part of the purpose is to really bring Germany into the classroom in many different dimensions. And I think historically they focused mostly on the social sciences and social studies teachers, but now there's opportunities for people in STEM to participate. And that's one of the things in my role at the World Affairs Council in Seattle that we've really tried to cater to, because education is so interdisciplinary.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really thinking about at high school, how can we work in the arts? How can we work with math teachers? How can we work with the language teachers? And so I see TOP going in that direction as well, working with a diversity of different disciplines. And I think the 3 pillars here with TOP is education, dialogue, and experience. So right? So one of the things that they do is they produce a lot of great materials that you can use in the classroom, and we have some of those materials for you. They just arrived this morning, and I received, I think the hotels gave you a text message, but they sent me a message saying that the boxes are here. So for some reason, they didn't arrive sooner, but we'll have those available, right, Tommy?
Yes, when the test is going on for the students, we have a little break, we'll get that material, and there's material in there for you to take. So take an actual example. This is, I love virtual too, but you'll actually have something in your hand you can take home and look at. So we wish we would have had them now, but we will find you during the conference today, because this is really one of the main things Tom can provide you at no real cost to you. Right? It's material that's been worked about Germany for non-German speakers and non-German teachers, right? So this is something that you could pull sections out of, you could implement it fully. It's kind of you can do with it what you want. So we will have that material.
You don't have to use, these materials in their entirety. They've got different sections on different topics and issues and different lessons. And they're really generous about providing, if you want, like a classroom set of materials. I called up and said, I'd really love to, have a classroom set of materials, and they sent them to me. Or we were doing a program in Seattle, and there was a German focus, and I said, I'd love to have some of these materials to give out to teachers when they're here, and so Jen sent them to me. So they're readily available. Let's go on to the next slide for just a moment. So the teaching materials, just some statistics: 10,000 hard copies provided to workshop attendees annually. So lots of availability. There's also instructional guides, newsletters, films, DVDs, wall mounts, and more. So they've got more than just books to provide. And I think Jenny sent me about 30 of the DVDs as well. There's also a website that you can go on, and there's some materials online as well that you can utilize. Okay, let's go on to the next. They also have newsletters that come out. Tommy, how many times a year would you say?
It's a quarter.
A quarterly? Okay.
Yeah.
This person I know, Amy, because she went on this tour in 2015. She's a social studies teacher in Michigan. I didn't meet her on a hot trip because I went in 2017, but I met her on a trip that I took to Jordan. We were on a professional development trip to the Middle East, and we went to Jordan 2 years ago. And then, anyway, we had this experience in common. She was taught has sort of an educator of the year, somebody who's really been doing a lot in terms of promoting Germany in the classroom. I know she's done a lot of exchange work. They have sort of like a sister school in Germany where they've hosted German students, I believe, and I think, unfortunately, with COVID, they haven't recently been able to go to Germany, but that's been a great experience. But she was featured here, and you can find all of these quarterly newsletters online. And they also talk about their experiences and also have lots of curriculum ideas about how to bring Germany into the classroom. So she's a really dynamic teacher that I met. I was looking through these old guides, and I just shared you all. So this is a quote actually from another friend of mine that I didn't go to Germany with, but was on a different trip to Senegal with. And she's a science teacher in South Carolina. And she works at a school where they do a lot of engineering work. And so she went on one of the STEM trips to Germany. And this was a quote from her. She's featured in one of the magazines too. I think it was, I'm trying to remember the year, 2018, maybe. Her name's Kristen Bullington. But she said, the greatest lesson I learned from my Tot City tour was the revelation that STEM instruction and outreach can not only be used to prepare students for technical majors and careers, but also as an intentional tool to achieve a more integrated society. So she's doing lots of great work in South Carolina, but she's also been working with a school in Germany also in the STEM area. So But you can look at all of these quarterly newsletters, and there's inspiring stories of educators who are doing work bringing Germany into the classroom. All right, let's go. I wanted to mention also on our website at the World Affairs Council, we also produce curriculum guides. And last summer, we had a pretty heavy German focus. We work with the University of Washington. We do a one-day educator workshop. And our educator workshop this past summer in August was all about sort of the Green New Deal and Europe going green. And we had, I would say, a big German focus. And so we have about a 60-page guide. A lot of it focused on what the Germans are doing around the Green New Deal and green technologies and actually green parties. There's a whole section on green parties. We had a speaker from Germany who spoke about the rise of green parties in Germany. So if you're interested in bringing that into the classroom, which I do because I teach political science, that was really interesting. But this is on our website at the World Affairs Council in Seattle. So
Just
yes,
a little side point. So
Yeah.
You guys operate under NEP, which is the system New Zealand picked up. So our political system is the same as Germany's.
see,
The New Zealand political
Yes.
system is the same as Germany's.
oh, it is, okay.
We moved to multi-member proportional representation, say 10, 20 years ago.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. I've had a lot of those conversations this year in my class because we study elections and we study elections around the world. And my students are always frustrated by our two-party system, and they're wondering, I mean, we've seen in the United States, we're seeing more proportional representation at the local level, but we haven't seen it expand the broader level. And so kids are always frustrated about the lack of choices. And if there was proportional representation, or some of my kids are interested, you've seen some of the ranked voting options as well. They like this website called Fair Vote, if you've heard of it before, that talks about some of these changes. But with the German election that happened recently, we also looked at the German electoral system, trying to make sense of how it all works and the different choices that we have. My students are always asking me, it seems like a lot of other countries have a lot of other choices than we do in the United States. We might have other political parties other than the top two, but there's never any representation. We'll maybe get that door opened up where you can learn more about these other parties, then they would have some traction. And so we do talk about that. And so New Zealand has
Same system.
same system as Germany. I did not know that.
We
So,
adopted it about 20 years ago.
20 years ago, and you feel like it's worked.
It's a way better system
It-
than the American system. Our system used to be like the American system,
right,
where the minority party would end up
right,
winning the election, which made no sense.
right. Yeah, we're always talking about electoral reform in my class, and it leads to some good discussion. So hopefully, in the future, and this is another way to bring Germany into the classroom, right? Or New Zealand or any of these countries, just to look at elections in a broader context and their implications. So just a couple of other things, a couple of maybe, I wanted to talk just for a moment too about teaching ideas and materials. And I, as a teacher, I really love this context, and you'll like this too because of your global competence work, but I really like the Asia Society and thinking about these 4 domains of global competence. And we use these at the World Affairs Council a lot to shape a lot of our programs. And so I'm always telling my students, how can we investigate the world? How can we recognize diverse perspectives? How can we communicate ideas? And then sometimes the harder part, sometimes it's taking action, but I tell my kids, you don't have to necessarily fly to Germany or fly to another country. You can take, important action in your own community because you want to connect the local to the global. And so I use this lens to kind of frame a lot of our conversations. Why are we doing what we're doing? Like, why are we learning? Why do we care? What does this mean for us? What kinds of skills are we developing? And so to have this interdisciplinary study, having this global context, I think is important. And so this provides one framework anyway that one can use So to kind of frame their coursework. Okay, I wanted to share one other idea. I don't know how many of you use the sustainable development goals in your. I love these because they're so interdisciplinary, and I mean they sort of build on one another, but they're not focused on. These aren't goals that simply like the United States is working on, or Nigeria or New Zealand. These are, everyone has a stake in these issues.
Right.
So like I was thinking, how do we bring Germany into the classroom through the sustainable development goals? And actually, even if you wanted to, if like a language teacher in German, there is a German version of these goals. So if you wanted to look at these in German, just in terms of practicing, I think you could do that. But I use these also as a framework with my kids. So, and we look at the progress of, where are we at in certain areas, but we really break it down and look at regions and countries, and the goals are ambitious, but it's one way to kind of bring these issues into the classroom. So, and to bring in more of a global perspective, and you can use this lens to bring Germany in. So through the sustainable development goals. So.
And just as an aside,
Yeah.
Tom is creating a website right now with its materials that it's already developed for STEM topics, including sustainability, that will be
Great.
launched at some point, probably in this semester, before the summer, we hope. And so that will be a source. Who has heard of the sustainable development goals from the UN? Okay, so the United Nations came up with this as they had the Millennium Development Goals first for the year 2000. Or maybe it ended actually in 2010. And these are goals for the whole world that they put forward. And so these are goals for 2030 now to be achieved. And I think you will, you think what you want of that as a political thing in of itself. What this really does, I mean, you can work on endless material on 17 different goals. If you one day in class and you're like, gosh, we are talking about climate change and maybe clean water and sustainability is an issue now. You can use goal number 6, find material about that. If you want to have the German aspect, obviously integrate that in a cultural connection as well. So I just want to emphasize how interesting these can be in the classroom, that we do have some material that will be forthcoming.
That's great.
Yeah.
The other thing that we often do is match the teaching standards, curriculum standards in the US to those.
Yeah.
And when we worked with Google for a while, and they said, please don't ever write curriculum with the US standards because more than the US learns things. And so they advocated this too, so in their work. But you can just embed your standards like crazy in whichever discipline you are. And again, moving towards that interdisciplinary approach, you could get your math teacher, your language teacher, and your social studies and science teachers all on one and do an amazing project.
Absolutely.
There's a high school in Seattle that opened a couple of years ago, and their entire curriculum is based around these goals. Like this is the framework for their school.
Mm-hmm.
17 goals. I always ask the kids if there was 18 goal, what would it be? I mean,
They can't believe it with the graphic.
I know, this is kind of comprehensive, but what would an 18 goal be? There are a lot of workshops that happen, like this across the country. Probably most of them over the past couple of years have been virtual, right, Tommy?
Yeah.
But generally, and TOP's also represented at different conferences around the country. So anyway, like I mentioned, I don't know how you feel as teachers. I love this kind of part. I love the in-person conversations. But I also love, you attended like more conferences that you would have never been able to attend because of Zoom. So maybe if there is a positive from some of this that's happened over the past 2 years, I've been able to attend things I never would have probably. I've met other teachers in other parts of the country. So as much as I want to be in person, I also like some of the virtual options. So maybe that'll still become, a thing. So there's also opportunities for cross-cultural exchange. So if you want to turn to the next slide. I got involved through Todd with another teacher on a program called Going Green. I don't know if you've heard of Going Green or not, but so we did a sustainability project between our two schools. And we learned about sustainability, we did learn about the Sustainable Development Goals, and then we wanted to tell each other's classrooms what we were doing in our own community around sustainability. So what was happening in the German classroom, in the German community where they lived, and what's happening, in Snohomish, where we live in the broader Seattle area. And so we had some virtual discussions and meetings, both through discussion posts, but then also we did some live sessions. And that was really to have the opportunity, sort of what we saw in here, that focused around this program.
That'd be fun.
Was really great. You really had a chance to go a little bit more in depth. And then I wanted my kids to really hear the perspectives of those German students. And then of course, it leads to other kinds of conversations that, are just a cross-cultural nature that are fun to have. So, those are also opportunities through Todd. And now I'm working with a teacher in Hamburg, so that I met through the program. And a couple of these teachers, like he's become a good friend of mine, we've never met in person. So hopefully at some point, but we've worked together, our students, for 2 years now. Okay, finally, this is what I love too, the opportunity to actually apply what you've learned through these workshops and through these experiences. There's nothing like being in Berlin, or there's nothing like being in Munich. And one of the things that happened, I guess I'll show you this in just a minute, but generally speaking, and is it this year, is there a trip or is there not?
For 2022.
Yes,
There has not been an announcement.
there hasn't been an announcement yet. Okay.
I would already sent your sites on 20.
Okay, but generally there's around 100 teachers. Again, I applied for this in 2017. It's amazing. They spend like $5,000 to bring you to Germany for 2 weeks. And what I found unique about it is that every one of the trips is a little bit different. So depending on what is it, the leader of that particular trip, ours was focused around the theme of immigration. And so we were looking at all of the people who had come to Germany from places like Syria, Afghanistan, and then also the Horn of Africa. So a lot of Eritreans, some Ethiopians. And we first started in Munich, but we stayed about an hour from there in a small community called Kaufbeuren. Am I saying that right?
Kaufbeuren?
Yeah.
In Eilborn, the southwest.
Yes.
Kaufbeuren.
Yes, that's it.
Kaufbeuren. Kaufbeuren.
Okay. And I think this is the first time Todd had done this, but we did a homestay. So we actually stayed with a family, and I'm still in touch with the family that I lived with for 3 days, and actually went back a couple of years later and stayed with them again, which was great. So obviously but that particular community was doing amazing things around welcoming immigrants into their community, because obviously people come and they may not speak the language, they don't have jobs, there are all sorts of cross-cultural differences. How do people integrate? And then we also spent time in schools there where we met students who were from those different countries, and we were learning about how they were integrating into the German school system. And it was just, we were really inspired. And that was sort of the theme, the lens by which we went through the rest of our 2-week trip. So, anyway, the itineraries are always different and a different theme. Canadians also are part of the experience. I love these too because, like you've seen, you meet amazing teachers from other parts of the country. And then you stay in touch with them, which is one of the great things about it. So, okay, let's go. I just have a couple slides left. What's that?
This is your 5-minute.
Oh, I know. This is just part of the old, Berlin Wall that we went to when we were in Berlin, where we finished up our trip. And I like to use some, different graffiti art in my classroom. I like to bring the arts in and have the kids be creative with things that we're studying. So, that was the shape. Go on to the next one. Of course, that's a picture from Berlin. And go back. This is pure Catholic, right? Under practice. They pretty small community, but they had a wonderful festival, and it was really a great experience. And then, but I went back 2 years later. I guess a lot of German towns have this. I was telling Tommy they have like a festival where they act out like historical. Yeah, and so it was amazing to see all of the stories that were taking place. So we started here, and then we made our way up, and we went to I don't see it on this. We went to Würzburg, and then we went to Leipzig, and then we finished up in Berlin. We also went to Potsdam, which was really interesting. But we noticed a difference too, and they mentioned this. We had this in the opening session. Sort of the difference in perspectives on immigrants, and in this area it was different than what we experienced going up further northeast. Maybe not so much Berlin, but like in Leipzig, it had a bit of a different perspective on people who'd come from other countries. So that was interesting for us to learn about. Okay, and lastly, want to go to the next slide. This is just you can apply. Usually it's between October and January. But this time it's been delayed, I think, a bit. I didn't find the application to be cumbersome. It was, it took a little bit of time, but it was great. But I mean, it is competitive. You have to submit a lesson and keep it student peer focused. And then when you come back from your trip too, you prepare a lesson about how would you bring that experience to the classroom. So you can choose your theme or your topic. So, yeah, so it's a great opportunity, a great experience to bring Germany into your classroom. So, and as teachers, take a chance or an opportunity to have someone else, fund it. That's what's great for teachers. That's one of the fringe benefits is you have these different organizations like, who will fund you. And it's really a remarkable experience. Yes, you
had earlier slide as the last bullet on cross-cultural exchanges.
Yes.
Do I understand this correctly that those exchanges are student exchanges, high school student exchanges?
They could be both.
They could be.
They could be both. Yeah, I think I put that up there. Well, Tom, you can talk about it. But we have there are possibilities for student exchanges. I don't think this pot doesn't fund German students coming to the United States.
But would it fund Missoula students?
That's
high
right.
school
Right.
going to Germany?
Top specifically will not, because top is focused on teachers. So this is cross-cultural
Teachers.
for teachers.
For teachers.
Teach about your some capacity.
I
So
see.
the top program really is teacher focused.
Okay.
We have other programs that do enable student exchange programs,
Right,
like
yeah.
GAP, which is what we'll talk about.
Okay.
after partnership.
Right. Okay.
But this is really teacher
Teacher
focused, yeah.
center.
But what they will lead you into is like I talked about before, those, even if it's a virtual cross-cultural exchange between your classrooms,
Right.
top will help facilitate that, will help you get that going. So yes,
During the tours to teachers, I got to speak to themselves.
we did, yes. Yeah, we spent a lot of time in the schools there, and not just schools, but we also met with immigrant organizations to learn about what they were doing, what was working, what were the challenges. It was really inspiring. Of course, the Germans took in, more, for example, from Syria than any other European country or any country, anything in the world. But it's really, really amazing. So,
And you'll see on the, I already switched it.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are, the German bank, Siemens as a company, and they used to have Bosch, right, the German company, that actually fund this program. So there are, I don't mean to like take your bottom line and
Yeah.
say it again, because you've said it several times, but this is an opportunity for teachers to apply to go to Germany, right? So look at this as a possibility funded by the German government and other funders, right? So this is, Germany has an interest in bringing you there, right? It's kind of just about finding those possibilities, and Brian did exactly that, so.
and then I find these experiences like one thing leads to another. And then, it's kind of like the ripple effect. And you've got all these really interesting programs going on, not only for yourself, but also for your students or even your school. So I'll be around,
Yes.
the rest of the day. So if you have questions or you want to talk more personally about any of these things, I'm happy to.
Just a little side point,
Yes.
like, so the immigrants that came over the Syrians, I'm guessing they didn't speak German.
No,
Did they speak English?
some did, some didn't.
And so how long
So-
would it take them to sort of, to feel like they were comfortable with German?
I think for maybe, I think part of it, from what we experienced, part of it depended on age. So, and also depended on whether or not if you were an older immigrant and you were going into the workforce, then you would pick up German more quickly. If you weren't working, then it might happen more slowly. But it seemed like the younger, like if you were student age, you had support within the German schools, but your language acquisition came, I think, quicker because you were using it, much more quickly. So I think that's what our experience told us. So,
And Ryan is going to be here, like you said, the rest of the day. We will find you to give you materials that you can take home and thumb through and see if there's any questions that you have. Obviously, we'll answer, or if you find ways that you want to use it in your classroom, you can be in touch with us to order a classroom set. So just look at it with an open mind. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Ryan, for sharing your story. So now we'll just keep it right along here, moving to the next part of this. So Ryan was talking about the CHOP program.
I can do that.
That's great. And that is just one thing that the Goethe Institute has to offer. And so today I want this to just be about getting to know the Goethe Institute. What we have generally, hopefully you leave here thinking not really sure what the Goethe Institute is, but you'll check us out online. So that's what I really want to come from this, is look at a new way of finding material for your classroom. So first of all, like, how many of you deal with the topic of Germany in your classroom throughout the year at any point? STEM, so sustainability topics, elections, Europe, all of these things. You don't deal with any of that?
Me personally, no, she doesn't.
So I think you'll be surprised that there are lots of ways that you can actually maybe use Germany to do other topics. So as kind of a something different. So anyway, my name is Tommy Flanagan. I'm the co-director for SPARK for German, which we'll talk about. I'm the language program officer for the Goethe Institute in New York. Excellent. And I just want to say, for people who don't know, I am a native Montanan. I was born and raised in Absaroka, Montana, which is down by Columbus. Went to high school there, graduated in 2010, and then have been doing different German things throughout my life. So I now work at the Goethe Institute, which is the regional headquarters in Washington. And when this opportunity came across, Nikki contacted us. It's something that I really believe in as someone who came from a Class C school, where I was introduced to German. We did not have a German class, right? It's just really a coincidence. And that has actually guided my career ever since, right? And so I'm personally very passionate, excited to be here because I know people in Gardner, people in Bozeman, people in, I don't know, there's like 19 schools on there, right? In Missoula, Hayes, what's the name of that school? Hayes Lodgepole. This is something, Germany is maybe not something that they're going to encounter in the regular curriculum, but if they do, it might actually spark something for them. So I hope to get that point across here at work. So today, it's just about getting to know each other. What is the Goethe Institute? I'm going to kind of go through really quickly some programs that we have, and hopefully you remember some of them because there's a quiz at the little quiz. Yeah. And then goals. I just want to highlight the Goethe Institute, our programs, as something that you can use, and that you get in touch with us and that you know where to get more information. So this is our mission statement. I put it up here in our lovely Goethe green. Sprache, Kultur, and Deutschland. Those are the three key words: language, culture, and Germany. Everything we do falls under one of those kind of pillars. So you can see here, it's the cultural arm of the Federal Republic of Germany. We're funded by taxpayer money from Germany. We're in over, it says somewhere in 90-some countries worldwide. You can actually, if you wanted to sign up for German today, you actually could take a course from us. It costs money, but I might be able to get you a stipend for that. If you were interested in learning German, and really promote and convey a comprehensive image of Germany, right? This comes out of a history that we've all talked about. After World War II, Germany was not really allowed to do cultural diplomacy anymore for good reason, right? That was taken away. And as the country built back, they developed a kind of a third arm of their cultural outreach and said, this is not going to be connected. And just an interesting thing, because world affairs, the Goethe Institute has actually served in really interesting places as a place of mediation. For example, in Iran, when the US was not able to host anyone in mediation there because of the political situation, the German embassy had also more or less pulled out, but the Goethe Institute was still functioning and served as the neutral space that said, we are a gateway to Europe, we're not here in a diplomatic sense, but let's bring Iranians and Germans. So like there are countless examples of that, and but you should also know, because of this intercultural dialogue, teachers are really one of our main target audiences in every country that the Goethe Institute is in. Thus, we are here today. So, next slide, please. So everything falls under these bullet points: shape and revise the image of Germany, present contemporary German culture, foster German language and culture within the American educational system, and specifically for the US or North America to strengthen kind of the civil society between transatlantic relations. So here is where we're at in the US. I work at the one in Washington. We cover this area. Okay, so just right around the corner is San Francisco, which covers you. So we're kind of spread out through the country. That being said, the US is the country where there are the most Goethe Institutes in one country. So there is a very large interest, in representing Germany in this country. So you guys will get in touch with San Francisco or me directly, and then I can connect you to the specialty people in the different institutes. Yes.
What are these? I noticed that Seattle has one of these because we did something with these.
The pop-ups?
The pop-ups.
Yes, this is a new modern idea that the Goethe Institute tried. Let's do pop-up institutes. And there isn't language offered there, which is why it's not on this one. But they're institutes that were kind of funded on the fly, I would say, and they do cultural events. So there's one in Kansas City, there's one in Seattle, and there was one in Houston. And those continue to be funded because we're reaching people that we wouldn't otherwise reach. So you can go there for a lot of cultural events. And that. So I just want to briefly hit on our strategy, and I know it's kind of boring. It's boring for us too, people who work in the Goethe Institute. But when we talk about educational outreach, that's what I work in, right? So there's German, and then there's language, and there's the non-German language people who are interested in Germany. And we divide our work into these four things, right? So we build up networks, and we support networks that already exist in the US among teachers. We have actually offers for learners, right? Which is kind of what Ryan showed. We have material that learners can use to learn about Germany or German. Offers for teachers, especially German teachers. If you want continuing education, we have a range of ways to send people to Germany to learn German, to do online. We have a pretty robust online offer these days for learning German or teaching in German. And then educational cooperation, where we work with decision makers, administrators, to try to get in that process so that Germany and language learning in general is in kind of a consciousness where decisions are being made. So those are the kind of four strategic frameworks to look at. And so TOP is one of them, right? That's about educational cooperation. We're hoping that we get into the decision-making processes of teachers and administrators by inviting them to Germany to see it firsthand, right? So I don't need to hit on that anymore. Ryan has done TOP already. This is one, Udo, that you were asking about. The German-American Partnership Program is actually celebrating its 50th year. It's the biggest, it's the largest bilateral exchange between the US and any other country. So this is something you should put on your radar because it's for teachers in schools with or without German programs. And the idea is that you then have access to the structure to plan and exchange. So you don't apply to GAP and they say, great, you're on the list, go to Germany. You have to come to it. Fortunately or unfortunately, with your own initiative to say, I want to reach out to school in Germany, I want to make the partnership happen. You apply to GAP and they'll say, great, we have materials for you, we have know-how, we have best practices, we have some stipends for individual teachers, groups, and classes. And it's a way to build a kind of a sustainable relationship to a school in Germany. So if you have not done this, I would really encourage you to look at the German American program. You see 9,000 students participating every year, 750 schools already in the US in our network. Even in Montana, there are a few, although it's kind of a thin layer here. Yes.
So I currently have 2 GAP partners.
Okay.
It's dormant, but I get 2 to 4 requests a year from a teacher in Germany who says, boy, would you like that GAP program? Will you take us on? So just so that he doesn't have to, I'd be interested.
I love that you hit that because it is a partnership, right? We're sitting here thinking we want to reach out to Germany, but there's also a want and need in Germany. They're like, we want, like this class we just saw today, their English was impeccable, right? They're just thinking about connecting to the US. And so we also get all kinds of requests every year for schools in Germany that say we want an American partner school. You don't have to speak German, right? Because it's probably their English class who's doing this, right? So you have a way to both learn and teach in kind of this extracurricular way. And so I'm a huge proponent of this. If you go to the next slide, you can see some more. This what sets a GAP school apart from other schools. GAVE started in 2020 when coronavirus hit. And so it's a German American virtual exchange. And that is open to anybody to take part in, right? And so they help you organize virtual exchanges, which is a lot. I mean, it's a heavy lift. We all know what it takes to plan a virtual event, but it's a lot lighter lift than saying, okay, I'm gonna get the money together, get the plans together to take a group of students to Germany. So this is a great place to actually start with this GATE program. They're on the same web page. So when you find one, you find the other. And they already have, again, it's about material that you can use for your classroom, for middle school, high school, ready for you to use. So I would encourage you to do that. This is the name of the executive director, Holly Rounder. She works at the Goethe Institute in New York. That covers a whole slide. Okay, so GAP, put that one away a little bit. Here's the next program, Study Bridge. This is a little bit more focused, and there is a reason I'm bringing this up. But it is a direct path to studies in Germany. So if you have a student, this is really one student at a time focus, because this is a big commitment, but it could be potentially life-changing for the right student. If you have a student who is interested in international things, and you see that spark in them, right, and you think they would thrive getting more of that, I would encourage you to look at the Study Bridge. It does require students to look into and start with the program already in their freshman or sophomore year. I know, I already hear all of the reasons why that's not a good idea. But what they get in the course of 3 to 4 years is a language course training, right? They pay a minimal fee for the program. They take language courses. During that 4 years, there are chances to go to Germany for language courses and preparation. Intercultural training courses with their peers. There is a focus on STEM because of the partner universities we have in Germany are also very STEM focused. So we tend to look at students who also have kind of STEM interests, but it doesn't mean you can't do it if you're not interested in STEM. And they help you prepare for the program. Go to the next page. This is kind of an overview of, for me, this is the big why would anybody do this? If you live in the US, this is where the top ranked universities are. I already speak English. English. Why would I go to a different country? I can send a letter to U of M. I don't want to take anything away from U of M or any other school, but you can apply up to a very late point. This requires me to do it already really early. Those are all in the cons, right? That's why this program's hard, but this is why it's easy or why it's attractive, and it's because of the tuition, right? Even students who are gonna pay in state, in most states, maybe with the exception of some of the states in the West, are gonna just pay less over the course of a 4-year, probably in Germany, a 3-year degree, right, for a bachelor's degree. They'll have learned the language well enough to study in Germany by the time they graduate high school, because they went through study bridge. They applied directly to one of the German partner universities, and if you know about international universities, these are very well rated, highly rated in Germany, among the best, in Europe also among the best, and some of them have, you know, programs here with the University of Montana even, or others around the region. So this is the thing I hit home with American audiences, right? Is if you're looking for an alternative to an education, if you're a student who is interested in international things, look into this. You can start it and then stop it, right? It's not like someone's gonna come after you and get you if you didn't end up going to Germany, but you will still have gained some language experience through that. Did you have a question right there?
Couple. So this is for, like, they could go and graduate.
Yes.
4 years, so it's not like a study.
No, this is directly applying to university.
So I find it either freshman, you have freshman and freshman, sophomore.
Freshman or sophomore, there are ways to start.
And then they start taking they participate in these things. Would it be difficult for them to end if they successfully done all the steps?
No, but so by the time they're a senior, they'll have been placed. So you apply to study bridge, and you spend about 3 years with the language and intercultural training. Lots of support from the Goethe Institute, kind of holding your hand along the way, because you're starting probably with 0 German potentially, right? And then you apply in toward the end of that program directly to one of these universities, of which, and these universities have reserved some places for a study bridge worldwide. So this is also for students all over the world at the Goethe Institute.
Or to
No, it's not different. You just get started, you kind of commit to saying, yeah, I'll take the online course that might take a semester, for example, yeah, and then the next part, right, I will commit to going to the thing in Germany, the preparation course, maybe a year later, and it's just a gradual preparation from the time. It is a wonderful opportunity.
There's a question, usually it used to be, maybe that changed when you got your American high school, because these kids would go with their American high school, right? And you used to not be accepted at German universities with that because of the, you know, the differences, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you would either have to take an entry test or show some other diploma from the US, because it's not just about Germany, it's about the difference in the educational
Right.
system itself. So, because I have had students, even when they started here, asking me, when they checked it out, that was always the question. And they got the impression that they would have to go. Maybe this is why it's these universities, they have set up kind of college practical course. So when you get, is that the case? I'm just wondering, because I have had students ask me about studium or, you know, how
Yeah.
they would do it, not as an exchange, but to go long term.
Uh-huh.
And of course, they are not anymore in high school, so they can't be there, as you were explaining.
Right.
But when they checked it out, they thought, from their understanding, that they needed more than just a high school level entry thing, and there were other tests, and also there was sometimes like a college track thing at these universities. Is that how it still is? Maybe that's changed. I don't
Yeah.
know.
That's a good question, and that's why we ask students to start this early, because you're right, there are other requirements. But the idea is if you did commit to the program as a sophomore, a freshman or a sophomore, you go through and you're able to, because in Germany, they do have entrance tests. You don't just necessarily apply, you might have an entrance test, especially if you're not a German citizen, this type of thing. But this program does prepare you to get in. And I'm not trying to sell this as an easy thing, right? It's not easy to also do your high school here and focus on going to Germany. But if you do it, you will be in the Lage to apply to that and succeed, right? If you've done all of the parts. So it is a heavy lift. So that's why when people come to the realization as a junior, oh, I'd like to do this, this is not really a program that they just start at that point unless they already speak German fluently. Because you have to take this test in German. You have to have a B, I don't know if you know the different language levels, but it's called B2. That's the bare minimum you would need to actually be able to go directly into a German university. So I'm happy to answer questions about that. I just want you to keep that in mind when you come across students. You're like, this student could really do something like this and it would maybe change their life. And in the US, we have all kinds of things. So I want to go to Harvard. They have that for a minute. If you want to go to the University of Montana, then they have that for a minute. Maybe they want to go abroad. So it's just about keeping your mind open. If you have school counselors who are looking for interesting things, please put me in touch with them because student counselors can really administer this kind of stuff a lot better. Okay, next slide. So this is changing gears a little bit back into kind of high school. The Goethe Institutes really focus not just on learning German because let's be honest, German programs are not growing in this country, unfortunately. So we have a set group of German programs in this country who we are working with to try to kind of save that in a way, right? But why do you learn German? Well, you learn German and you really focus on this whole concept. I don't know if anyone knows this, content and language integrated learning. So it's learning actually about STEM. And a side piece to that is, oh, you learned some German vocabulary. How interesting is that? And you see the vocabulary again, and then you use it again in the next activity, right? And so we have these two online platforms that are in two versions, fully in English and fully in German, called Kinderuni and Junioruni. It's like Children's University and Junior University. And it's for teachers, students, or parents. It's free online. In these bags that I gave you, there's some information about the Kinderuni. That's probably younger students than what you're dealing with, but for your colleagues, it could be interesting. We have nature, humanity, and technology. Those are the free faculties, and you go through that, and by the end you get a little diploma that says you're a doctor of the Kinderuni. And if you do the English version, you also did activities in German, right? Like it's about gravity, so kids learn about, oh my gosh, if they see videos of scientists kind of doing this gravity stuff, German words kind of fly across the screen, and they actually learn a little bit about German language through learning about STEM. Junioruni, this one is brand new this year. Same concept, just for older students, starting from about 12, 13, 14 and up is good, especially in the full German version, which is really for beginners, right? If this is for beginning German students. So I just wanted to highlight those things because they're free platforms. If you're doing like an after school program or I don't know what comes across your guys' plates where you say, well, we could use this online thing, working with students in the community. Let's do German and STEM. And this is the logo from a competition we have called Our Sustainable Future. You'll remember the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that Ryan put up there. That's our version of this competition. So if you, this competition is for students from age 14 through senior year of high school, and they get together with 3 of their colleagues, peers. They identify a sustainability issue in their community or school, connect it to one of the 17 sustainability goals, and then turn in that project to us. There is a German component to it, so it does, the best projects are the ones who can combine some elements of German with a German teacher or someone who knows German and a STEM thing or sustainability topic and turn that into us. The winners, unfortunately, the last 2 years haven't been able to do this, but they'll win a trip to Berlin to an international sustainability conference. So that can really be any of your students. I want to hit that home. You have students who are interested in sustainability issues, which from that student conversation, it sounded like there were some, there were some in there who were. And if they're interested in doing a little German, this is a great way for them to potentially go to trip to Berlin and meet other students as well. So that's 3 programs that I want to highlight for that. Running up on time here. And then we have Spark for German. This is the last program I'll talk about today. Spark is actually about after school programs, right? So take your in the day school, pat off and say after school programming. And this is really focused on teaching German to students who don't know German, low stakes environment. We have material and curriculum ready for you to use. And that kind of the idea with this was we could go to, and we did this here at the University of Montana with my colleague, who is a German professor here, you're supporting us today. So we go to universities who have German departments and say, hey, you probably have students who are interested in becoming teachers and know about German. Would they be interested in implementing a Spark program in an area after school way, right, at a middle school, an elementary school, in a community setting, and say, hey, I'm gonna learn some German, we'll do 2 or 3 sessions or 10 sessions or however you want to do it, and then spark some interest in the German language and culture that way, because there aren't many regulations in the after school setting, right? You don't need the approval of your school board probably to do that. You probably have a lot of some forms to sign about privacy, et cetera, and so forth. But when you implement it, the students come, it's after school, they know nothing about German, they go through this material, and it's maybe the first time they're like, oh, German is a thing. Then they get to high school, maybe there's a German program there that they decide to do instead of Spanish. I'm not getting on, knocking in Spanish. But once they have an interest in German, why wouldn't they continue that? And if it's in Montana, then there's this whole pipeline idea, right? You can highlight and say all the way to the University of Montana or MSU, where there's also a German program. You can stay in Montana and do these international focused things. And then there's study abroad here, and you can do all these things. So one of the things is, right, we have these boxes, these little Spark boxes. So once you become a Spark member, you can order a box. This is the Kinder-Uni material, right? So that Kinder-Uni thing is online, but we put it in a box and said, if you're going to do it after school, right, here's all the things you need in order to do that. We have a binder that has all of the lesson plans and the things you would need. There's a thing about car racing, right, for these really little kids that you can do. There's a tape measure in here. There's a pointer. There's colored pencils. There's these plastic eggs that they do gravity things with to kind of say which one's going to fall faster, right? And then they realize, oh, the rate of gravity is actually the same. Oh, but there's this air resistance thing. And they're doing this and getting in touch with some German vocabulary. So that's the German After School Spark program. The benefit for people at the university is that these student teachers really get their first practical teaching experience with the guidance of their university professors and the Goethe Institute. That's hopefully something positive that makes them commit to the teaching career, because it's two-sided. We want more German learners, but we also want teachers. We have to tell anybody here that we need more teachers, and if they can teach German, maybe they can actually bring that to their school. Let's go to the next slide. So again, this is just what we have. We have the curriculum for you, continuing education. At the university level, these students can apply for scholarships to go to the Middlebury Summer School, which is one of the top kind of language learning summer schools in the country, or to the German Summer School on the Pacific, which is done out of Portland State University in Oregon. And then you get access, if you're a teacher, you get access to our kind of network. We connect you with people who have done successful Spark programs before, that type of thing. So why am I even talking about this? People already have full-time jobs, and the last thing they really want to do is implement an after-school program. Well, maybe you know people in your school who do, or maybe you yourself have an interest in Germany. And one of the offers we have for the winners of Academic Quest this year, which you were emailed about, is that the students, the winning team, will get, we will make it possible for them to go to a language camp in Germany in the summer of 2023. So through Spark, we are offering the winner, the winning team, and the winning teacher, and we will be right there supporting you the whole way. Implement a basic Spark program. These students will have basic German before they go to Germany and actually be able to take advantage of that opportunity even more if they're spending a year in advance saying, okay, how do I prepare for German? We can get them online courses. All this material is available for them. So this is Spark is kind of well, I'll say prerequisite for doing the course in German. And again, we're here to help you. Might even give me a chance to come visit your school one day, which I think would be very cool. Next slide, I think, please. So this is how you contact us again. Now we go to the next one. Here's the links. I'm going to send this to Nikki because these are the ones in green are the ones we get. You see, we didn't have time to do everything for today, but you'll get these links, these QR codes, and I really encourage you to just look up. Study Bridge was interesting. Go onto the website, see if it's something that you want to consider. You know, after school program, get on the website and see. And I think we have a quiz now. Quickly, if you go to the next slide. Oh, it's our contact information. But there's me, there's Ryan, and Pidge, who works here in the German department, professor of German. So if you're really interested in creating opportunities in Montana, creating these local connections, get in contact with us. Okay, so the last slide. Okay, next slide. So there's a quiz here, and we're just going to see if any of you were paying attention. Okay, so what is the Goethe Institute? Who wants to just give like your own sentence? What is the Goethe Institute? You can't say.
I was holding my tongue.
Someone came up to you and said, "What's the Goethe Institute?"
Sort of cultural connection between America and Germany.
Okay, cultural connection between Germany and the world, I would say. This one, America. Good, okay. Focus on language and culture. How many Goethe Institutes are there in the US and to which one does Montana belong?
3.
4. San Francisco, how many institutes are there?
6.
Hey, here we go. Okay, what program offers a direct path to university studies to Germany? Raise your hand up. Yeah. Study Bridge. Have a German word? Okay. What program would you choose if you wanted to start a German after-school program at your school with other colleagues? Yes. Sparks for German. Correct. I hope you started a partner. Okay, name one of the 3 programs introduced today that combines aspects of German, STEM, and sustainability. Kinderuni. And you have all of you, please take all of the things on the table, and in your bags here, there's actually a little pamphlet about the Kinderuni for you to take. So please do look at that. I'm running out of stuff here. What program offers special study trips to social studies and STEM teachers to go to Germany? Do you remember what it's called? There was a lot today. It was tough. It is a lot. Not sure. It is, yeah. Okay. Are you curious about exploring the offers we talked about today in your school? If anyone said no, ripping up your just one. And do you know how to contact us? Probably not yet, but you will. That's really all it is. We're coming up on time. Please sign up in office so that we can get in touch with you. Take all of these things that are on your extra bags. Yep, there's some up here and
One over here.
And I want to say one other thing. I said this at your speech yesterday.
Yes.
This is really the crux of why I think I'm here. Montana is a great place to live. Like we said this. Montana is the best place to live, but we shouldn't forget there's a lot of really good other places out there, and the Goethe Institute is a way